Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy my new stories every day. It was supposed to be a quiet getaway, just the two of us, driving up the coast for a long weekend in the mountains. Claire had suggested it, said we needed some time to reconnect. Our marriage had felt a little off lately, but nothing I couldn't chalk up to the usual stress of life. We had been married for 7 years, and though we didn't have kids, we were comfortable, settled. At least, I thought we were. The drive was peaceful enough, though Claire had been on her phone more than usual. I wasn't the type to get jealous or nosy, but something about the way she angled the screen away from me and turned the volume down every time it buzzed didn't sit right. I brushed it off. Maybe I was just being paranoid, and I didn't want to spoil the mood by accusing her of something. Maybe we were just going through a rough patch, and this vacation was what we needed to fix things. The mountains were still a few hours away when Claire asked if we could stop. She needed to use the restroom, and we were miles from the next rest area. We pulled off the highway at the next exit, where there was a Wawa. I parked, figuring she'd be in and out quickly, and I'd stretch my legs while she took a break. She grabbed her purse but left her phone on the seat, something she never did. I remember staring at it for a second, but I didn't think much of it at the time. We trusted each other, didn't we? That's when it happened. I was scrolling through my own phone, killing time, when hers lit up beside me. Instinctively, I glanced over. The name on the screen wasn't familiar, just a first name, Jeremy, but the message that popped up was, "Can't wait to see you again tomorrow, baby." My stomach dropped. Tomorrow? We were supposed to be on vacation until Monday. What the hell was this? I hadn't even touched her phone, but just seeing that message made me feel like I'd stumbled into something I wasn't supposed to. Before I could process it, Claire came sprinting out of Wawa like she was being chased. Her eyes were wide, her pace frantic. She yanked open the car door and snatched her phone out of my hand before I even realized I had picked it up. The look on her face was panic, pure, unfiltered panic. I forgot something inside, she stammered, avoiding my gaze as she clutched the phone to her chest. Without waiting for my response, she turned on her heel and bolted back into the store. I sat there, stunned. In all our years together, I had never seen her act like that. She was usually so calm, so composed. What could possibly be on her phone that would make her freak out like that? The message replayed in my head, taunting me, "Can't wait to see you again tomorrow, baby." There was no good explanation for it. I wasn't the jealous type, but this was different. This wasn't just her being secretive. This was something real, something tangible. When she finally came back to the car, she was calmer, but there was a tension between us now, thick and suffocating. She tried to play it off like nothing had happened, like I hadn't seen the message or noticed her panic. "You okay?" I asked, testing the waters. "Yeah, just forgot my wallet," she replied, her voice too steady, too rehearsed. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Ready to get back on the road?" I nodded, but my mind was spinning. Every instinct told me to ask her about the message, to confront her right then and there, but something held me back. Maybe it was fear of what the answer might be, fear that I was about to open a door I couldn't close. So I didn't say anything. Not yet. The rest of the drive was quiet. Too quiet. Claire scrolled through her phone like nothing had happened, occasionally laughing at something she saw, but all I could hear was the echo of that message, over and over again. "Jeremy. Baby. Tomorrow." When we finally arrived at the cabin, I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. But the way she had reacted at the Wawa, it didn't feel like nothing. We unpacked in silence, the tension still thick between us. Claire kept checking her phone, though she made sure to do it where I couldn't see. My suspicion was growing by the minute, but I was still trying to hold on to some shred of normalcy. Maybe this vacation could still fix things. Maybe if I just ignored it, we could get back to how we used to be. That night, we had dinner at a small restaurant in town. The food was good, the wine was better, and for a moment, it almost felt like things were okay again. Claire was laughing, telling me about something funny that had happened at work, and I found myself relaxing a little. Maybe it was all in my head. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then her phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen, and her whole demeanor changed. The smile disappeared, her eyes darted to me, and she quickly shoved the phone back in her purse. "Work stuff," she said, too quickly. I nodded, pretending to believe her. But I didn't. Not anymore. Later, as we lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. Claire was already passed out beside me, her phone on the nightstand. I stared at it, the screen dark, mocking me with its silence. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't help myself. I reached for it, my heart pounding in my chest. Locked. Of course it was locked. We had always known each other's passwords, but she had changed hers recently. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now it seemed like another piece of the puzzle. Another sign that something wasn't right. I put the phone back on the nightstand and lay there, staring at the ceiling. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all. Who the hell was Jeremy? Why was he texting her about seeing her tomorrow? And why had she panicked so much when she realized I had her phone? I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I made coffee and tried to act normal. Claire was her usual self, chatting about what we should do that day, where we should hike, what we should see. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living in some kind of alternate reality, one where my wife wasn't who I thought she was. As we hiked through the woods later that day, I kept replaying everything in my mind, the message, the sprint out of Wawa, the way she had acted since. I had never been the suspicious type, but this was different. This was real. That night, I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her just yet. Not without proof. But I needed to know. I needed to find out the truth, one way or another. So when we got home from vacation, I started digging. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who snoops through his wife's phone and checks her emails. But what choice did I have? Claire wasn't going to tell me the truth on her own, and I wasn't about to live in the dark. The first thing I did was check our phone records. Sure enough, there was a number that had been showing up a lot lately. A number with a Virginia area code. And every time she had stayed late at work or gone on one of her business trips, there were calls or texts to that number. Jeremy. It had to be him. Now I just needed proof. And I wasn't going to stop until I had it. When we got back from the trip, I couldn't shake the feeling that my world was quietly crumbling around me. Claire had kept up the same cheerful facade, laughing, joking, and acting like nothing was wrong, but I was consumed by a gnawing suspicion that everything she said was a lie. I had to find out what was really going on, and I wasn't going to let it go. That night, as we unpacked and got ready for bed, Claire seemed completely at ease. She chatted about how great the trip had been and how it was nice to get away. Her words felt hollow to me, like the entire weekend had been a performance. I wanted to confront her right then and there. I wanted to grab her phone, show her the messages, and demand the truth. But something stopped me. Maybe it was fear, or maybe it was the need to be absolutely sure before I blew everything up. Either way, I knew I had to wait. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. Claire had an early meeting at work, so she left the house before me, giving me the perfect opportunity to start digging. The first thing I did was log into our shared phone account. I hadn't looked at it in months, there had never been a reason to. But now, it felt like the key to everything. As I scrolled through the call history, my heart sank. There it was, the Virginia number. It had appeared dozens of times over the past few months, always late at night or during her so-called work trips. And the texts, hundreds of them, all to the same number. Some were just minutes apart, a constant back and forth that made me sick to my stomach. I stared at the number, memorizing it, knowing that it was Jeremy. I couldn't prove it yet, but I knew in my gut that he was the one she had been seeing. The one she had been lying about. I jotted down the number and decided to take it a step further. I ran it through white pages to see if I could match it to a name. My heart pounded as I waited for the results. When they came back, it was exactly what I had expected, Jeremy Blake. The name matched the messages I had seen flash across her phone. There was no denying it now. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. The man who had been texting my wife, calling her baby, and planning to see her again, had a name. He was real. And I was on the edge of discovering just how deep her betrayal went. But I wasn't done yet. I needed more. I needed proof that would leave no room for her to weasel out of it. So I went a step further. I started pulling receipts, credit card statements, hotel bills, anything that could give me more clues. I even checked her work calendar, comparing dates when she claimed to be out of town with the calls and texts to Jeremy. It all lined up perfectly. The nights she was working late or at a conference were the same nights she was calling him, texting him, and, based on the hotel bills, probably meeting him. She had been playing me for months, maybe even longer. The anger hit me like a wave, but underneath it was something worse, betrayal. How could she do this to me? To us? We had built a life together, a marriage I thought was solid. And she had thrown it all away for some guy she met at work. I sat in silence for what felt like hours, the evidence of her infidelity laid out before me. Every text, every call, every charge on her credit card felt like a knife to the gut. But I still didn't have the one thing I needed, the one thing that would make her admit to what she had done. Her phone. That was where the real answers were. The texts, the photos, maybe even explicit messages that would finally give me the ammunition to confront her. But Claire wasn't stupid. She kept her phone locked, and she had changed her password months ago. I had no way of getting in without her knowing. So I waited. I bided my time, all the while pretending that nothing was wrong. Every day, I went through the motions, work, dinner, small talk, while the truth ate away at me. But I was patient. I knew the opportunity would come. And when it did, I would be ready. A week later, it happened. Claire was running late for a meeting, rushing around the house like a whirlwind. She kissed me on the cheek as she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. But in her hurry, she left her phone sitting on the kitchen counter. The second the door closed, I pounced. I grabbed the phone, my fingers shaking as I tried to figure out how to unlock it. I thought back to all the times she had used her phone in front of me, trying to remember any clues she might have left behind. Then it hit me. She had used our anniversary as her passcode for years, maybe she hadn't changed that. I tapped in the date, my heart racing. It worked. The screen unlocked, and I was in. My hands were clammy as I opened her messages, scrolling down to Jeremy's name. There were hundreds of messages between them, dating back months. Some were flirty, some were explicit, and all of them confirmed what I had feared. She was cheating on me. I scrolled through, reading every message, every intimate detail of their conversations. The things she said to him, the same things she used to say to me, made my blood boil. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to keep up the act for so long, to look me in the eye and lie to me every day. But it wasn't just the messages. There were photos too, pictures of them together, pictures of her in hotel rooms I had never seen, doing things I didn't want to imagine. The reality of her betrayal was worse than anything I could have dreamed up. I had everything I needed now. The proof was right in front of me, undeniable and damning. But I didn't want to just confront her and watch her squirm. No, that would be too easy. Too simple. I wanted revenge. Cold, calculated revenge. The kind that would leave her life in ruins, just like she had done to mine. But I needed to be smart about it. I couldn't let her know that I knew, not yet. I needed to plan my next move carefully, to make sure that when I did confront her, I had all the power. I set the phone back down on the counter, locking it just as she had left it. Then I sat back, my mind racing with possibilities. Claire wasn't going to see this coming. Not by a long shot. When she came home that evening, she was all smiles again, pretending like everything was normal. But as I watched her, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. I knew her secret now. And soon enough, she was going to know exactly what it felt like to be blindsided. With the truth about Claire's affair out in the open, at least in my head, I knew I had to keep playing my part. If I wanted my revenge to work, I couldn't tip my hand too soon. The worst thing I could do was confront her with anger or accusations without being fully prepared. I needed to be in control of the situation, every step of the way. The next few days were torture. Claire continued acting like the perfect wife, laughing with me at dinner, talking about plans for the weekend, even suggesting we take another trip soon. She was good, I'll give her that. But I saw through her now. Everything she said was tainted by the knowledge of her betrayal. Every smile she gave me felt like a lie, every touch a performance. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I focused on building my case, gathering every shred of evidence I could find. I needed to be airtight in my accusations when the time came. The first step was securing copies of all the incriminating messages and photos. I couldn't risk her deleting them once I confronted her, so I transferred everything from her phone to mine, saving them in a hidden folder. The texts, the hotel bills, the explicit photos, all of it would be waiting for her when I revealed my hand. But that wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel the same humiliation I felt, to be blindsided the way I had been. It wasn't just about exposing her infidelity, it was about making sure her world came crashing down the way mine had. And that required careful planning. Over the next week, I began laying the groundwork for what would come. I started by pulling away from Claire, but in subtle ways. I became more distant, less engaged in our conversations. I stopped initiating any physical affection. She noticed, of course, but she didn't say anything at first. Maybe she thought I was stressed, or maybe she just didn't care enough to dig deeper. Either way, she left it alone. Then, I set my plan into motion. One morning, after Claire had left for work, I called our bank and quietly opened a separate account in my name only. I transferred the bulk of our joint savings into it, leaving just enough behind so she wouldn't notice the change right away. It felt strange, like I was already cutting ties with her, even though she had no idea what was coming. But I had to protect myself. If this went the way I expected, she wouldn't hesitate to go after everything we had built together. And I wasn't going to let her walk away with it. The next step was even more difficult. Claire and I had a lot of mutual friends, people who had been there through every stage of our relationship, who had no idea what she was really up to. I wasn't ready to blow up our social circle just yet, but I needed allies when the time came. I reached out to a few close friends, casually mentioning that Claire and I had been going through a rough patch. I didn't say much, didn't hint at the affair, but I planted the seed. If I could make them question our relationship just enough, it would make my eventual revelation even more believable. Finally, I reached out to Claire's boss. It was risky, but necessary. I had learned enough from her messages to know that some of her business trips were fraudulent, covered up with excuses and lies. If I could prove that she had been using company time and resources to see Jeremy, it would not only damage her career, it would give me leverage in the divorce that was sure to follow. I wasn't vindictive by nature. But this wasn't about being petty. This was about making sure she paid for what she had done. I wasn't just going to leave her, I was going to make sure she lost everything. By the time I had everything in place, weeks had passed since I first discovered the affair. I had played my role perfectly, keeping up appearances, pretending like I didn't know what was happening. Claire had no clue. She still went on with her charade, planning weekend getaways with me, all while sneaking off to see Jeremy when she could. But I was ready now. I had the evidence, the plan, and the resolve. All that was left was the confrontation. One evening, after a long day of work, Claire came home in her usual bubbly mood. She kissed me on the cheek as she walked into the kitchen, talking about some project she was working on. I watched her, my stomach churning with disgust at how easily she lied. How she could look me in the eyes, day after day, and act like nothing was wrong. "Hey," I said, interrupting her mid-sentence. My voice was calm, casual, but there was an edge to it that caught her attention. "We need to talk." Claire stopped in her tracks, her expression shifting from carefree to cautious. She knew me well enough to sense that something was off. "What's up?" she asked, leaning against the counter. I motioned for her to sit down at the kitchen table, and she hesitated for a moment before complying. I sat across from her, taking a deep breath as I prepared myself for what was about to come. "You've been lying to me," I said, keeping my voice steady. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in them. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice too controlled, too practiced. "Jeremy," I said simply. The blood drained from her face. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She knew. She knew I knew. And for the first time, she was truly cornered. "I know about all of it," I continued, my tone cold. "The messages, the phone calls, the hotel rooms. I've seen everything, Claire." She tried to speak again, but I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the folder where I had saved all the evidence. I slid it across the table to her, watching as she hesitated before picking it up. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the photos, the texts, the undeniable proof of her infidelity. I can explain," she stammered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Don't bother," I said, cutting her off. "I've already made up my mind." Her tears came faster now, panic setting in as the reality of the situation hit her. "Please, Mark," she pleaded, reaching across the table for my hand. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I love you." "Stop," I snapped, pulling my hand away. "Don't even try to lie to me anymore. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some one-time thing. You've been lying to me for months, maybe years. And I'm done." Claire sobbed, burying her face in her hands, but I felt no sympathy for her. Not anymore. She had made her bed, and now she was going to lie in it. "I've already filed for divorce," I said, my voice flat. "I'm keeping the house, and I've moved most of our money into a separate account. You'll get whatever the court says you're entitled to, but that's it. We're done." She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, her eyes wide with shock. What about us?" she whispered. "There is no us," I said coldly. "You threw that away the moment you started seeing him. Now, you can live with the consequences." I stood up, grabbing my keys off the counter. "I'll be staying with a friend tonight. When I get back tomorrow, I expect you to be gone." Claire didn't say anything as I walked out the door. The last image I had of her was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the phone in her hands, her life crumbling around her. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free. As I drove away, I couldn't help but smile. My plan had worked. And now, she was the one left picking up the pieces. It had been 2 weeks since I left Claire sobbing at the kitchen table. 2 weeks since I laid out all the evidence, told her about the divorce, and walked out the door. In that time, I had kept my distance, staying at a friend's place while the lawyers handled the paperwork. I hadn't spoken to her, hadn't even seen her. As far as I was concerned, our marriage was over. I had expected to feel some sense of closure, maybe even relief, once I pulled the trigger on my plan. After all, I had done everything right. I had exposed her lies, secured my assets, and set the terms of our separation. Claire had no choice but to accept it. I had won. But as the days passed, that sense of victory began to fade. I kept thinking about her face when I told her I knew, how it crumbled when I slid the phone across the table, her tears falling as she tried to explain. I had walked away without looking back, but now, late at night, her broken expression played on a loop in my mind. I had thought it would feel good to watch her suffer the way I had. And in the moment, it had. But now, with the dust settling, I wasn't so sure. I was heading back to the house today. Claire had moved out, according to the agreement, and I was supposed to meet with my lawyer later in the week to finalize the details. I wasn't sure how I felt about going back, about seeing the place we had called home. I knew it would be different, empty, without her there. But that was what I wanted, wasn't it? As I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as ever. The garden was still neatly trimmed, the porch light still on, as if everything was normal. But it wasn't. Claire was gone, and so was the life we had built together. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The silence hit me like a wave. It was eerie, the kind of quiet that comes when a place has been abandoned. Her things were gone, no shoes by the door, no jacket on the hook. It was like she had never been here at all. I walked through the house, checking each room. The living room was bare, except for the furniture we had picked out together. The kitchen was spotless, every trace of her erased. It felt like I was walking through a stranger's house, not the one I had lived in for years. When I reached the bedroom, I paused. This was the room where everything had fallen apart, where I had first noticed the change in her. I opened the door slowly, half expecting to feel some kind of emotional weight as I stepped inside. But the room was just a room. The bed was made, the nightstands were empty. It was as if the last few months had been a dream. As I stood there, I noticed something on the dresser, an envelope with my name on it. My heart skipped a beat as I walked over and picked it up. Claire's handwriting. I stared at it for a moment, debating whether or not I should open it. Part of me didn't want to. I had made my decision. Why drag myself back into the mess? But curiosity got the better of me. I tore the envelope open and pulled out the letter. Mark, it began. I'm sorry. I know you probably don't want to hear it, but I am. Sorry for everything, for the lies, for the affair, for the pain I caused you. I never wanted things to end like this. I never wanted to hurt you. But I know I did. You deserve the truth, and I think I owe it to you now, even if it's too late. What you found, what you saw between Jeremy and me, it wasn't what you think. Yes, I was unfaithful. Yes, I lied to you. But it wasn't about love. It wasn't even about sex. It was something else entirely. I've been sick, Mark. For a long time. I didn't want to admit it to myself, let alone to you. But something in me changed, something in my head. I felt lost, empty, like I wasn't myself anymore. I tried to hide it, to pretend everything was fine, but it wasn't. I started making bad choices, desperate choices, to feel something, anything. Jeremy was part of that. He wasn't my lover. He was just, there. Someone who made me feel like I could escape, even if only for a little while. I don't know why I did it. I don't know why I risked everything. But I did, and I'm sorry. I never stopped loving you, Mark. I know you won't believe that now, but it's the truth. You were my best friend, my partner, and I betrayed you. I won't ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know the truth before we said goodbye for good. I hope you find happiness. I hope you find someone who will love you the way you deserve. I'm sorry I couldn't be that person for you in the end. Goodbye, Mark. Claire. I stood there, the letter shaking in my hands. I had been so sure of everything, so sure that she had betrayed me, that she had been cold and calculating in her affair. But this wasn't what I had expected. Her words, her apology, it all felt too real, too raw. And that wasn't all. At the bottom of the letter, there was another note, hastily scribbled, like she had added it as an afterthought. I'm pregnant, Mark. I wanted to tell you, but with everything that happened, I didn't know how. I don't know if it's yours or Jeremy's. I'm so sorry. The letter slipped from my hands, floating to the floor as the weight of her words crushed me. Pregnant. Claire was pregnant. And she didn't know if I was the father. I stumbled back, sinking onto the bed as my mind raced. Everything I had done, everything I had planned, was crashing down around me. I had spent weeks plotting my revenge, making sure she would pay for what she had done. But now, none of it seemed to matter. She was carrying a child. Maybe my child. I had wanted to destroy her, to watch her life crumble. But now I was the one left in pieces. The room felt like it was spinning, my world unraveling in ways I hadn't expected. All this time, I had been focused on revenge, on winning. But now I didn't even know what winning meant anymore. I stared at the letter on the floor, my heart pounding in my chest. What the hell was I going to do now?